All right, welcome everyone. Hi, I'm Beth Hayden, and I'm here with my special guest. Welcome to our Q&A webinar, and it's called Marketing in a Strange New World. So I'm Beth Hayden, and what I noticed with COVID and everything that's going on is that business owners are really scared. All of us are scared, and I thought I would give an offering to the community to try to talk about some of these things that are coming up for us as business owners and entrepreneurs, to try to answer some of the big questions that I've been hearing, because I'm hearing the same things over and over again, which are, I'm really worried about my business. I don't know if it's okay to market right now. How do I market without sounding completely insensitive? What do I do if my offerings are all in person or they're events and I can't do that anymore and I need to pivot? So I was hearing these same questions. So I thought, why not invite some of the smartest women I know to come on a little Q&A webinar and talk about some of this stuff. So I'm thrilled to introduce my three panelists. And so I'm going to do some quick little intros and some kudos for these fabulous women. So Sonia Simone was a founding partner at Copyblogger Media, which is now Rainmaker Digital. And I had the pleasure of working with Sonia really closely when I was a staff writer for Copyblogger, which was a fantastic experience. So Sonia's actually recently left the Copyblogger community, and now she works with select clients at Remarkable Communication. And you can find her at, I believe it's remarkablecommunication.com, but Sonia will correct me on that in a minute. So a couple of times a year, Sonia hosts this amazing workshop for writers about finding their voice through content marketing. And I took it a couple years ago, and it was one of my all-time favorite online classes. And let me tell you, I've taken a lot of online classes. So it was really, really wonderful and just fantastic for me as a writer to get tons of new ideas and really develop the craft of writing. So Pamela Wilson is the founder of Big Brand System, and her mission is to help people build online businesses they love while feeling clear and confident every step of the way. And let me tell you, as a copywriter, I love that line. It's so clear and helpful. She's also the author of one of my all-time favorite marketing books, which is called Master Content Marketing. So it's one of the most dog-eared books on my shelf by far, and it's one that I just reach for over and over again. So Andrea Vahl is a social media marketing expert who specializes in Facebook and Facebook advertising, and she helps business owners reach their perfect customers using social advertising without spending an arm and a leg, which I love about her approach. She's also a fantastic speaker, and she's hilariously funny. So if you ever get a chance to see her live in person or live in a virtual event, I highly, highly recommend it. So I'm Beth Hayden, just to introduce me really quickly. I'm a copywriter and a webinar specialist. So I help people take the visitors that they're getting to their online site, to their blog, sometimes to social media as well, and into their webinars, and help people turn them into buyers who buy again and again and become rabid fans who buy your stuff over and over again. So that is me. So what I'd like to do, and so welcome everyone, all three of you. Thank you so much for joining me today and being willing to kind of roll with this last minute webinar. So I appreciate it. So what I want to do is try to kick things off with a couple of general questions, and I'd love to hear from potentially all three of you on this if you have something that you'd like to share. So one of the biggest questions that I know is on everybody's mind is it even okay for me to do any marketing at all right now? I want to hear from the three of you on that. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. That's my short answer. Yes.
Yeah, and I think maybe not in the same way we were doing it before. You know, we need to be sensitive to what's happening, but yeah, we can't let everything grind to a halt.
Right. Yeah.
I've been thinking about this a lot and writing about it some and doing interviews about it some. And I think, people are worried that somebody's going to get mad at them for their marketing. And I don't think that's going to happen. People are actually really forgiving right now. And I think there's a pretty general understanding that it's really a hard time to make a living. So I don't think it's that as much, but I do think the wrong kind of marketing is really just it's going to be invisible.
Right.
Because, we're getting all this noise. People are very overwhelmed, of course, and they're kind of shutting down. They're just kind of really turning the volume down on the inputs that are stressing them out, this is a great time to do the kind of marketing where you're saying, hey, what's going on with you? How's it going? Are you guys okay? Is there something I could do that might be helpful? Is there something I could do that would just make you feel better today? That kind of marketing will get through and start to land. And I'm thinking about that amazing quote. I think it's Maya Angelou, where they might forget what you said and they might forget what you did, but they will not forget how you made them feel. And that is kind of my compass right now is, and it's not to say that you don't let people know I have something available. I'm teaching yoga by Zoom. I have a local grocery delivery service. I mean, if you have something, let people know, because I actually know a few businesses that are doing as well as ever and sometimes even better than ever, because they just happen to have something people want right now. So don't do it because you're worried people will be mad, but really you have to think so hard about relevance right now.
Right. And I think a little bit the package that it comes in as well. Like you said, Sonia, people are overwhelmed. We're all processing a lot of extra information right now. And I think if we can be sensitive to the fact that this might not be the time to send out the 1,000 word email to people's inboxes, right? Might be a time to write shorter content, to record shorter videos, to write shorter messages and keep them as light and friendly and accessible as you possibly can. That, I think, delivering your marketing in that kind of package will also be really helpful right now.
Right. And I think sharing where you're at as well, acknowledging, because I think unless you're just this ice rock, you're definitely feeling some of these up and down emotions as well. And that helps you connect as a person with your community. And I think just by sharing a few of those things, obviously we're running a balance of, again, how you make people feel. You don't want people to feel worse. You don't want to freak people out with some spun up fear-based message. But just by acknowledging what's happening and saying, hey, here's what I have available, like Sonia said. And I'm definitely doing less emailing, but still making sure I am doing emailing and ads and things like that. And I'm actually seeing a lot of my clients get half price, third price, 30% off their lead costs right now.
Wow.
And actually generating more sales than they had in a previous launch, but actually kind of, one of my clients saw more sales, but not the high end thing that she was selling. So I think that's it too. People are maybe a little bit more cautious with their money. And so she's getting more sales in the lower end price point of her offering. So it's being done out there. People are making sales and being profitable.
Absolutely. Interesting. You bring up an interesting point. It was something I was going to ask about, is whether the three of you feel like you should pivot towards some lower priced offerings. Let's say if you've got a high-end coaching program or some kind of really swanky consulting service, something like that. Should you try to come up with something smaller and maybe more bite-sized for people right now?
I personally think that's a great idea, because I think that people are, even if people are doing well, I'm in that business where, like, my business has kind of had a little bit of an uptick, but I'm still a little scared about a really big ticket purchase right now, because I don't know what the future is going to hold. So that's where I think, like, a slightly different offering that really addresses the time people have to do something, and maybe it's more live in person. You're not making a whole big sales page, but it's like, hey, I'm doing this thing and we're going to meet for 2 days, and we're going to, at the end, you're going to get, you're going to know how to do this, so it's maybe a slightly different offering than you've ever had before.
Yeah. and leaning really hard on the benefit of it right now.
Yeah,
like vague
right.
offerings.
Right.
As a copywriter, I've always been against vague offerings, of course, but right now it's more important than ever. If people don't get that that initial like, okay, why should I pay attention to this right now? Then your offer is not going to get off the ground. But I love Sonia's idea of trying to reach out to people and say, how can I help with this? Is there anything that you need right now? And kind of starting with that. It's one of the reasons I wanted to do this webinar, is to find out what people are struggling with. Because I sat down to create an offer, webinar series, masterclass, something like that. And I thought, you know what? I actually don't have enough information yet on what people are struggling with, other than these general questions of like, how do I market without being insensitive, kind of thing. So yeah, any other thoughts on that from Sonia or Pamela?
I have both ends of the spectrum in terms of offerings. I have a member program called the Big League, which is for people who want to build an online business in a group setting, and it's very economical. So I am planning this month, I was planning to sort of launch it in May or June, and now I moved it up, and I'm going to be talking about it in April, because I do think people need it right now. I think people who maybe in the backs of their minds thought about starting an online business, all of a sudden now it's, you know, kind of an urgent situation. But on the other end of the spectrum, I have one-on-one coaching clients, and I mean, there are people who can spend money on a higher end offer right now, and suddenly they have the time to devote to it. So there are some people who maybe wouldn't have worked with me one-on-one because they just didn't have time to actually do the work, because that's a very intensive, we work very intensely and try to get a lot done. So you have to have time, and people may have time now. They have money and they also have time. So I think you don't necessarily have to shut down those higher end offers, but yes, I think it's really smart to emphasize things that are very accessible that people can use right now.
Yeah.
And Pamela, with your messaging on that, when you do your launch of the higher end offering that you do, how much are you going to be leaning, say, in your sales page and things like that, on a COVID related message? Like, hey, this is something you could use right now.
Hardly at all.
Not at all. Okay.
No, not very. I mean, I don't plan to directly mention it in the messaging for the high end coaching at all, really. I think I'll talk about people's goals and their goals of building an online business and how it's a smart thing in the world today to build an online business. But I've been saying that for years. So that's not going to change. I mean, people can make their own connections, but I feel like as marketers, people are processing so much information that starts out with coronavirus or COVID-19 that or unprecedented. That's the other thing. If I see another email that starts by saying we are living in unprecedented times, I'm like, you don't need to remind me. We all know. Okay.
I know.
True. That's a good point.
Oh my gosh. Unprecedented. We need to just strike that word. So I feel like I don't want to say that anymore. I think people know, we all have gotten the message. We're all quarantined, for God's sake. We can't forget.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't plan to lean on that a lot. I plan to really focus on the positive instead of the negative.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be doing it right. I don't think any of us do, but that's
I totally,
what I have planned.
I totally agree with that, because and that message has changed. Like, that's why I don't think we can do a lot of long-term planning, because, you know, I used the word unprecedented when I emailed out and said, and I was just like, you know, but now it's become this like kind of overused, totally tired word. And so you have to be so able to pivot on your messaging from like, feels like day to day, you know? So, and I agree on not pushing it so much.
Yeah. I mean, Jay has a comment, you know, and I think a lot of people are in this space at first, right? You want the fire hose. Like, I have to get all the information. Now, I think people are sort of, I cannot read about that anymore. I just cannot read one more thing about that. And that's when, you know, a lot of times it's good to kind of zig a little bit when people are zagging. And so if you're seeing your email box is just flooded with these, you know, 5 letters, then, I mean, to Beth's point, talk more about, hey, do you have some, you know, you find you're having more free time than you did last month? Here are some ways you might use it. Oh, you're not, you don't have a commute right now. Let's talk about maybe some ways you could use that time and feel good about it. And the other thing I want to touch on, because I'm starting to see this pop up, is all this shaming. Like there's a certain kind of, especially the do business online kind of people are like, if you don't make progress on your business now, you suck, you're making excuses, you're weak,
Yes.
I hate that.
I hate that too.
Stop doing that. Again,
Yeah.
they will always remember how you make them feel.
Yeah.
And when you make people feel like trash to make a sale, you burn a lot of goodwill. That's what makes people justifiably angry.
Yeah.
And the other thing is when you convert, and this is something I have a little perspective on because I have friends across a wide spectrum of the kind of tone, okay? Just say that.
That's diplomatically
Let's
said.
be diplomatic. Let's be diplomatic. And when you convert somebody with that kind of fear, shame, kind of, like you're negging them, like in a dating situation, you're putting them down to get the date.
Yeah.
That person, you now have a toxic relationship with that customer, and they will be a pain in your backside for the rest of your life. This is the person who will trash you in social because you will let them down.
Yeah.
You might make the sale, but you will let them down because they're not coming from a good place.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I'd like to amplify that. Like, let's quit doing that because it's not good for any of us.
One thing I noticed, and this is why I'm so excited to get all three of you on this call, is one thing I noticed, I did a little research on kind of what you guys are saying online and just kind of pulled together some messages. And what I'm seeing from all three of you is a message about sort of being of service. And Pamela and I were doing some emailing about this. Andrea's got a great blog post on whether or not you should be running Facebook ads, and Sonia's got a great one on her remarkable communication post about how to communicate in the midst of a crisis like this. So check those out for sure. But I want to explore that a little bit. So for the folks who are panicking and saying, oh my God, this is the end of my business. It's so uncertain. I don't know what's going to happen. Oh my God. How can you shift into a mindset of trying to be of service in the midst of that? Andrea, do you want to start on that?
Yeah, I think that it is hard when you're not in a good place to then feel like you have to serve. And I really don't think you can serve when you're feeling so depleted and so scared yourself. So I think you first need to tend to what's happening with you a little bit. And although sometimes serving can help lift your mood. Like yesterday, I was having a crappy day. I was like, I don't know, just everything just, every other day is kind of like, one day I'm like, whoa, okay, all right, I got this. And the next day I'm like, oh my God,
I can't even.
I know.
Yes.
So today's a good day. Yesterday, not a good day. And I was like, oh gosh, I had to get on a group call, and I was like kind of feeling like I'm so down. I don't want to drag them down. But when I got there, the energy of the group and the fact that I was helping and, kind of saying, okay, what can we do together? That definitely brought me up in that moment. So, it can be this moment to moment of like, you know what, it's okay to not be productive this day. If you get 2 things done, that's a win. And then the next day, try again, tackle again and see how you can serve. Maybe it's just serving 1 person or 2 people or having a webinar like this that's kind of fun. I'm having a good time. So,
yeah. And being willing to be imperfect as well. Like I'm using a platform here that I don't usually use. I had to shift to Zoom because it's really the place to be right now. So I pivoted to that. Some of the things were a little rough around the edges. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to put this forth in a spirit of service and wanting to be helpful to people and be okay with some rough edges. So, and maybe even like, maybe I show up and I'm not in the perfect mindset and I'm going to go with it anyway. That kind of rough edge too, Yeah.
I have go ahead and then I'll, because
Lots of things to say.
Well, I know. What I was going to say is I have been working through that same question with my coaching clients and in my group coaching program. And one of the things that we're trying to do is I'm just asking people to take a moment and take a breath and look ahead and see what things might look like when this is past. Because I think we're all convinced that things aren't really going to go back to pre-COVID.
Right.
It's going to be we're going to live in this after COVID world, and right. So I think we haven't figured out what to call it quite at this point. But I have a private coaching client, Edward Schofield, who has a site called railguideeurope.com. And he works in the train system in Europe. And of course, that's not working right now. And we were working together to develop these products where he was going to help people plan their itineraries on all their train trips. And that, of course, came to a screeching halt. So I sat down with him and said, what do you think life will look like once the trains come back online? And once he really thought about it, he said, I actually think that people will be taking trains a lot more than before. Right. I have a feeling there's going to be a surge in train travel. So with that in mind, with that vision in mind, then we started to make a plan for, okay, what can you do right now so that the work you do now can be leveraged when that future moment happens. So I do think there's a way. I think there's a way. And then I have somebody in my big league program, Sandy Feaster, has a site called Turning 60 and Beyond. And she helps people who are 60 and beyond to be in great physical health. And she has taken to Instagram every day to show people exercises that they can do from their homes to help them stay in shape when they can't get out to go to the gym. So I think there's a way that you can look around and say, how can I be of service during this time, during the quarantine time? Right. And then what might the world look like in the future? And what can I be doing now to position myself so that I'm in a good place once we get to that future moment? I think for me anyway, thinking about the future helps me to get through if the present is not that pretty,
Yeah. I have a good friend. Her name is Ruth Basinski, and she runs a site that teaches therapists techniques for their clients. So, they do a lot of work with trauma and mindfulness. She's really amazing. She's a killer business person. She's a licensed therapist herself. And I remember talking to Ruth once, because the thing about business is, I'll just lay it out. You have good times and you have bad times. And if you have never had a slow spot, then maybe now is the time you get to do that lesson.
Yeah.
It's not any fun. It's not any fun. Okay. Right. So I was in a slow spot. Things were very transitional. And I talked to Ruth, and she and I ran a mastermind together. And I was just talking to her about it, and I just welled up, because it was so hard. It really touches your identity.
Yeah.
And I remember, I promise you, I remember this for the rest of my life. She looked right into my eyes. She has these really super blue eyes. And she said, this is a hard time. This is a hard time. And the time you spend here is going to allow you to help so many more people, because the people you help go through this too. And we all have moments where we really doubt ourselves. We doubt our abilities. We don't know what the future is going to hold. And that is very hard, but it's also, I used to have a button, oh no, not another learning opportunity, It's kind of that, right? Yeah. I'm not going to tell you it's all for the best and it's for your evolution, because it really hurts.
Yes.
Really hurts. Yeah. But that hurt is part of our human condition. And honestly, that was like once in a while you just have those life-changing conversations. It wasn't even 90 seconds, but it was so profound. And so I try and share Ruth's message when I can, because I think this is a time we need to hear that. It's okay if it's okay if it hurts. And it's okay if you really doubt yourself, and not every business will make it. And it doesn't mean you're not a good business person. It doesn't mean you're not cut out for business. We're in a disaster. This is a global disaster.
Right.
And, you know, we just have to try and cultivate our resilience. Tora Williamson who's one of my favorite people, is on in the chat. And we are doing a podcast on cultivating business resilience. It's like a pop-up podcast. It should be on iTunes like any minute now. Because that's where we've decided to focus. It's like just help people, like, what can we do to cultivate our resilience, knowing that any particular outcome, and you know, I mean, that can get as dire as that can get all the way dire, right?
Yeah.
We could lose somebody we love. We could, it could. So you know, I hate that stuff. I don't know how you guys feel. I hate that stuff where it's like, oh, this is like a wonderful moment of transcendence for the planet. We're
yeah. I know.
I do not want to hear it.
No. Screw transcendence.
Yeah, screw you, transcendence. Exactly.
I've had enough of you.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh gosh, that's the theme of the webinar today, right there. Yeah, I think that's wonderful.
I do think that there are, in these times, there is creativity that comes out. Like I started my business when I got laid off from my job, and it was about that, like creativity, like, well, okay, here's the reality, and how can I do this thing now that this is the reality I'm in? And so, you know, I definitely think it's hard to think about pivoting or whatever, you know, all that. Someone wanted to strike pivot from the word along with unprecedented, but like
I was about to use that word actually.
But you know what, there is that. It is, and it's about really kind of thinking, where can I get creative in my business to do something maybe, or try something I've always wanted to try, or, you know, just get maybe a little crazy and bring out some creativity if you have the energy, because I know it takes energy.
But don't put pressure on yourself. There's a saying out there that limits actually breed creativity.
Right.
So
they absolutely do.
Right. Like if you try to write a poem and you're not allowed to use the letter E, what does that look like? And you're going to create something extraordinary that nobody else has ever done, because you have this confining limit on it. And I think that's what we're going through now. So Pamela, what were you going to say?
Well, I mean, as a designer, everything you do starts with some kind of limitation. You know, it has to have a certain size or use certain elements. So as a graphic designer, I mean, that's been my whole career. But business has always been a little bit like surfing as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you're up there, but you're having to adjust your balance all the time, and a big wave comes and you got to navigate through that or around it. And I mean, it's always been that way, and this is no exception. It's you know, and sometimes, like Sonia said, the wave might crash over you and you drop off the board. And so you got to figure out what will happen next. But it's always been that way. It's always, you know, as much as the guys posing in front of their Ferraris would like us to think differently, it's always been that way. It's always been ups and downs and adapting. I like the word adapting rather than pivoting, because that's what you're pivoting sounds like you're turning 180 degrees and doing the opposite. It's more like adapting. You're just adapting.
Well, let's talk about that. Unless, Sonia, you had anything else to say on that point. I'd love to talk about adapting next. That was one of the things I was
I'll transition you.
Okay, fab.
The people I'm seeing, who I'm talking to, prospects and people I'm, you know, doing a little, having conversations with, the ones who are absolutely cannot move are the ones who have these like Instagram perfect personas, and they are crushed right now by self-doubt. They are crushed because they feel like they have this constraint that's not serving them, which is, I have to be perfect all the time. So if anybody's suffering from that, please let me give you a permission slip. In Norway, I like to do this in my talks. I passed out permission slips. Like, you have my permission to do whatever, you have my permission to be imperfect with your Instagram people, even if every single thing you've ever posted on Instagram is like curated with your perfect looking spouse and your perfect looking kids and you don't need to be that person right now.
Yeah.
Well, and that is so 2017 anyway. Let's just talk about that. I mean, seriously, that went out on Instagram a long time ago. So I don't, even if all of this hadn't happened, that would not be a good strategy. So
that's a good point. Yeah, the overly polished thing. What I've noticed over the years is that the more real I am, actually, I mean, there are limits on this. There is such a thing as oversharing. However, for the most part, me telling personal stories, being real and authentic, people are commenting on it in the chat about how they like the authenticity of this conversation. People connect with that. There's something very compelling about that. So in the midst of this, it is okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to be yourself as well. Because in the webinar world, like, webinars are always imperfect. There is always something that goes wrong, whether it's the dog barking or something happens with your platform or whatever. And it's okay to make that part of the wave that you are surfing right now and be less than perfect and less than polished. Yeah. So let's thank you for the lead in, Sonia. That was perfect. So let's talk about adapting. I'm not going to use the word pivot because I think Pamela's right on that. So we have people who are in situations where they do live events or they're in the travel industry. We've already had a couple of good examples of that. Any other advice on how to move or change your offerings so they fit better in this strange new world? Any advice?
And I think I want to kind of wrap into this discussion the thought of discounting, because that's oftentimes where I go, and Pamela knows I was even wanting to discount my course just recently. She was like, no, don't. And so I think it could be, I actually have a client who did a crazy deep discount on his product, and it actually didn't work that well. Yeah. And I think it was devaluing what he had been offering before. It was also hurting the people who had just bought it, like a month ago, whatever. So I think, when you are adapting, you're offering your thing, whatever you do, it could be something about maybe offering it in a slightly different way or adding more value into it. And that's the approach I took with my courses, my ads courses. I was like, okay, instead of discounting, I'm going to go live every week, which is something I've never done in there, and kind of offer that added service in there. So
right. And that's exactly what I started doing in my member program. Is we're having a live event every week. But if you have something that isn't like that, it's not ongoing, the other thing you could consider doing to make it easier for people is to just consider having a longer term payment plan. So if you have a 3 payment plan or a 4 payment plan, can you stretch it to 6 or 7? Can you figure out a way that you can take payments over a longer period of time? If people are watching their budget, they might be able to invest in your program if they can invest in smaller increments.
I love that idea.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
I have a thing that I always recommended forever, which is if you have no idea what to do. In fact, I've shared this with Beth in a call on a walk. If you have no idea what to do and you are kind of frozen and you don't have any creativity, I just like to say, hold a free Q&A. Yeah. Like just hold a free, and you can do that on anything. You can do it. I mean, Zoom is like super easy and you can get it for free. If you
even Facebook Live or any of the social platforms,
anything, Twitter, ask me anything. It doesn't matter. Just hold it. It's free. Just you set the expectation like this isn't going to be a fancy thing. Let me see what I can answer for you. For one thing, it takes the temperature right away of what's going on with people now. It gives you a ton of ideas. If nothing else, then you got your content ideas for the next 30 days. So that's good. But it boosts your confidence because when you're feeling really grim about your own abilities and you doubt yourself, the thing that can help get you out of your head is answer somebody else's question. And then you realize like, I might not be
I
bad.
actually know a thing or two.
Yeah, I actually kind of know some things, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, very good. Yeah. So advice for folks, one of the things I've been telling my folks when they come to me with questions, especially the folks who are a little bit frozen in place, or at least they believe they are, like travel industry is a really good example.
Yeah.
But even some in-person shops, like there's a knit shop downtown in Louisville here in Colorado where I live that has had to completely shut down. And so with those folks who are really, really paring down their offerings, and it's difficult to do something virtual, I've been telling folks to try to work on content, to try to work on some building their email list in a way that's still sensitive. Do you think that's a good move for people who have to hunker down short term? And if they can't adjust, although I think almost everybody could in some way, shape, or form, at least I'd like to think so. So is that good advice right now to try to work on the platform?
That is fantastic advice. If people are really feeling frozen and like I mean, first of all, it's always smart to be creative and say, can I really do nothing? Is there something that I could do? Because I've seen people doing some pretty creative things on Zoom and doing things virtually who never expected to explore the online platforms. So I think that's the first question. But if the answer to that is no, then I think developing your content is a fantastic use of time, because what is the number one excuse that we all get, all of us, when we try to teach people content marketing?
I don't have time.
I don't have time.
Yep.
So now all of a sudden here we have some time. We can dig into really learning to use our email platforms. We can dig into creating more content on our websites and put ourselves in a better position going forward.
Yep.
And Beth, you might talk to your Louisville knitting place, because I have a friend who has a quilt shop here in Denver. So she can't have her doors open, but she's doing mail order and curbside pickup and connecting with her customers who are very loyal, because she has made us feel great for all this time.
Yeah.
I am helping her. She used to do a lot of workshops. I'm just, because I have this Zoom account that's like that I pay for. We're going to do sewing night this week.
Nice.
And just sit and sew.
Yeah. That's great.
But, so the quilt shops are actually in good shape right now because people are making masks. But even without that, all of the crafts that I'm seeing, every kind of craft or hobby, people are doing like crazy and they are spending money.
Yeah, that's a good point. They still need supplies. That's absolutely
they
true.
Want, like, if I'm going to drop $300 on yarn, it's going to be right now.
Oh, here. Love that. Yeah.
And I'd love to have a virtual class on how to knit, right?
Totally. How to cast on, how to, you could do on Zoom, you really could do a thing where it's like, it's not working. And you just hold it up and you
point your camera in the right place.
Exactly. Yeah. And in the meantime, I'd love to see them flesh out their website a little bit more. They could be doing some online teaching that maybe isn't as interactive, sort of displaying pieces and things like that. I think there are things they could do, and they could definitely work on their email marketing. I've been bothering them about that for years. So yes.
Well, and one of the comments in the chat, I forget who, Karen, I think it was talking about business processes, and that's absolutely, like, think about all the things like we have wanted to do, and I'm actually starting to document my processes, because that's just been one thing that I've always wanted to do, because like Pamela said, this is not going to be forever. Obviously, this is going to be there's going to be effects from this for a long time. But, if we have the ability to document our processes, we can ramp up faster when this is done, just with being able to make sure our time is streamlined when we are in a time crunch, when we're busier and things like that. So I think that's a great thing to do as well. And there's some other great examples of what businesses are doing with this downtime,
Yeah, love that idea. Yeah. Very good. All right. I think I'm going to ask one more question from my list, and then I'm going to try to open it up so we can take some questions from the audience. Actually, there's one now and then one at the very end that I'll close with. I know there's a lot of folks out there who are thinking, oh my God, I actually need an income infusion now. They've had to put off a launch or an event, something like that. Like something happened and they need a cash infusion. Any advice for those folks?
I mean, this is a great time to develop a minimum viable product, I think. Something not complex, but give yourself this moment to put something out there and try to be helpful. And again, you might need to be creative.
Right.
But don't invest a lot of time in making it all polished and perfect, which is never a good idea anyway. The first time you put something out there, you want to put it out there, test it, see if people enjoy it, get some feedback on it, and then make it better over time. So it's a perfect time to take that first step and put something out there and test it.
Yeah.
I want to add, Andrea and Sonia, I want to hear from you on this, but one quick thing on that, as far as a minimum viable product, if anybody is pivoting to like an online course kind of model, I encourage you to do that light and fast. There's tons of really fleshed out online course platforms, and the big one is escaping me right now. I can't remember the name of it.
Teachable.
That's the one. So they go for these huge investments that are very technical, that can be technical to set up, and then they get lost in the platform itself. And when I started doing online courses, I would do them on a platform similar to Zoom, and then I would put them on WordPress pages and just
with a password.
Exactly.
Yes. That's all you have to do.
You can do
and
it
send
so
a PayPal
light.
link so people can send you money.
Don't get bogged down
simple.
is what I tell people. Like, add tools like that only as you need them. So if you find you need user accounts down the line for online classes and stuff like that, as you grow with that offering, then do it. But you don't have to do that now. It doesn't have to be, don't do Teachable right from the start if you're just starting with online courses. So that's my opinion. All right, but Andrea and Sonia, I want to hear from you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you need income now, I think it's about saying, what skills do I have that I can use in some way? So, I mean, just like sit down and list all the skills that you have. I know there's, I had some clients who had big events and they had to cancel their events.
Yeah.
So what skills, it could be a service skill that you do, like, hey, I know how to do WordPress. Hire me to help you with WordPress. Or I know I can teach this. I'm going to do like a quick and fast online course. Maybe it's like even just to test the waters with a $25 webinar or something, just like test it out first to see. And so I think it's just, and we often we discount some of the skills we have because we kind of think, well, everyone knows that, but they definitely don't. So, I think it's like just doing a brain dump of all the skills and see how you might plug in a different way, offering to help someone who is busy now or whatever.
Yeah. Love that idea. Yeah. Sonia, anything to add?
Of course, I have to mute myself so I don't just totally take the conversation over. A couple of things. One thing that it might seem a little weird, but Pamela's talking about creativity. If you are not in a risky health group, who needs help right now is grocery stores.
Yes.
Really think about things you haven't, delivery. Think about things you might not have been thinking about. And I think that we get into this space, and there's a certain kind of like digital business guru type who's all about telling you, oh, don't trade dollars for money. Guess what, gang? That's what work is. Hours for dollars. Work is when you put time in and get money. That's work. So that's what we do. We work. Maybe do some one-on-ones. Maybe what's easy? What's easy for you? What's easy to buy? I have a friend, she and her daughter went out and got jobs at Whole Foods, and it's their mortgage is covered, and they never would have thought of doing that before, but she's a massage therapist. She's done for now, and she can't get unemployment because she's a contractor. So maybe that'll change. Maybe it won't change. And then, think about what's kind of low risk for people to jump into. So if you always felt like, well, I can't do, but I would do a new thing as opposed to taking your, so I do things where I work with clients one-on-one for a month, and it's 5 figures. It's a lot of money, right? I'm not going to offer that for $500. That would be silly. That would be completely silly. What I can do, though, is offer something smaller that has a benefit that's not as risky for people to jump into. You know, and but I have my own stuff. Like, I have 28 ideas for little things like that, none of which have been launched because I'm very tired. Every day I woke up like, well, yeah, still exhausted. So,
I get it.
You do, you do one thing at a time. There's a thing from the new Picard show, which, by the way, if you have $6 a month and you like Star Trek, you know, maybe this would be a good time. You know, and they have a phrase, one impossible thing at a time. And that's kind of like, that's good advice.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah. And that fits in with our sort of taking it easy on yourself kind of mentality. There's no need to shame yourself. Like, entrepreneurial shame is not part of my messaging and my model, but particularly now, it's not helpful at all. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take some questions. Thank you guys for that. That was fabulous. I'm going to take some questions. So I forgot to say this at the top of the hour when we started. I'm going to go back through the chat and try to answer some of those questions. But if you can, it's easier for me to manage if you actually put them in the Q&A. So if you look for a little Q&A thing in the bottom of your screen, of your little Zoom screen, click on that, and it should prompt you to answer a question there, or ask a question right there. So, okay. How do you do this messaging? MailChimp, your website, Facebook? This is from Monica. There's so much out there. How do you pick? So do you guys have opinions on tools right now? I would say things that are hopefully light, fast, easy to learn. If you're trying to pick something new, like an email platform, use something that you can get into quickly. Don't pick the top of the line, you know, has all these bells and whistles kind of platform. But what do you guys think?
I mean, I think the first thing is to look at where you have an audience now. So if you have an email list on MailChimp, email them. If you've gathered a group of people on Facebook, talk to them on Facebook. If you have people, if you look at your analytics and you have people hitting your website, then post content on your website. But don't necessarily take this moment to learn a new platform. Like you said, Beth, don't spread yourself too thin. Just focus on where the people are. Don't start something new.
Yeah. Okay. We covered this. Karen had asked if it's a good time to be working on business processes, and the answer is absolutely yes. Documenting how you do things.
It's always a good time.
It's always a good time to do that, but particularly now when you're kind of stuck in the house. This is a good one. You're all around during the financial crisis and recession. What can we learn from that now? Sonia, do you want to start on that one?
Yeah, because I launched right in the teeth of the 2008 meltdown. Which in retrospect was like, haha, we thought that was hard.
I know.
Yeah, I know, right?
I know.
Yeah.
And what worked for me, first of all, I had like a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, a plan E, a plan F. So I got to like G, you know, I mean, I tried a lot of little things and some of them just went nowhere. For me, the thing that went somewhere was a low cost community, very similar to what we're talking about, low cost monthly recurring with a community aspect and teaching. And I would show up once a week and teach. Yeah. And
that's where Pamela and I met.
Yes.
I know. And I just loved that community so much. Oh my gosh.
It was really good.
It helped me start my business.
And it was cheap. It was the first launch was $27 a month.
It was too cheap.
Yeah,
wow.
It was too cheap.
And the second launch was $47 a month. It was cheap.
Yeah.
So it was easy to say yes. It was really easy to say yes. It was just, you know, and at that time, okay, so this is like a little bit of a shift. This is before I was a partner in Copyblogger. I think I was doing some posts for them because as soon as he said, would you ever guest write for me? I showed up with one post a week forever.
I remember you telling me one time that you moved in after that. And
I was like, I brought the U-Haul.
Another? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the one who brought the U-Haul on the first date. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And that worked out. But I didn't have a giant audience or anything like that. Now, I mean, but it's like you think, oh, now it's so much easier. It isn't actually, because 99% of it is your own stuff.
Yeah.
And wherever you go, there you are, So it's like I'm still got my own self. That's still the thing.
Yeah.
But that worked really well because people could come together and everybody was kind of stressed. So that helps people not be stressed. So I think that's still a good plan. It might not be your plan G that works for you, but it's certainly one I would try out. And yeah, to Pamela's point, man, do it as a Facebook, do it on whatever is easy. My only addition to Pamela's advice I might give is, if you do not have an email list, I would start that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Even if that means learning a new platform, but there are
Right,
some
but
that are very
there's some that are
friendly.
so easy. There's some that are
You
so
may
easy.
need to communicate with them on this other platform, but then drive them to your email list. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great addition.
Yeah. Andrea, any lessons from the recession?
Well, I mean, I started my business in the recession, because I had been laid off from my job. So, the lesson is there are people who are looking to do something new. I was looking to do something new, and I bought Sonia's program. So that if you can serve this huge body of people who are now in a different space than they were 2 months ago, then it might be a great time to think about how you can do that. So
great advice. Yeah, love that. Okay. Jennifer, you're asking, I need to survey my clients and also my list. Any great ideas? And I'm not sure 100% sure what you mean. If you're talking about platforms, I've used SurveyMonkey for years and been very happy with them. And there's a lot of free features that you can use without having to set up a paid account. Any other tools that you'd recommend? Or Jennifer, let me know if that's not what you meant in this question.
I like Typeform.
I use Typeform. I was going to say Typeform too.
Okay. And those are the ones that they look like, they are really impressive looking forms, right?
Yeah,
I think I've filled out a couple of those. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Typeform looks better. SurveyMonkey's Typeform will take you, if you've got like an hour or two, you'll have to kind of, fool with it a little bit and play with it.
There's a little learning curve.
It can do a lot. It's really flexible. It looks really cool. So
yeah, it does look cool. If you were
if you're like an authority, like maybe you have a blog and people already follow you, I would go with Typeform because it looks cool. There's kind of something, it used to be advice like have an ugly sales page. And then that advice was like, don't do that. And now it's kind of like the earthy looking things kind of work. So I think you could totally do both. I think SurveyMonkey would for sure work. You just set the expectation like, hey, this looks like, ass, because I'm just throwing it out there. And they're like, yeah, it looks like ass. Cool. So it's okay to do something that's maybe a little, and not that SurveyMonkey looks like ass. Every time I say things like this, the CEO of this company, like I get pissed off emails. So
we'd like to give you a free account so you can explore our new UI.
Exactly. Don't even talk to me about some of the CEOs over the years. TypePad still, I think he took out a hit on me. So I'm not saying SurveyMonkey doesn't look good, but it's not as beautiful. TypePad is beautiful and polished.
It is.
SurveyMonkey is a little less polished. I think they're both good.
Yeah. Okay. And actually, Jennifer asked a follow-up question, and I want to hear just like one quick thing from each of you on this. She's saying, what questions do I ask in a survey? So if you can each give me one question that you would recommend for Jennifer, if she's trying to survey her audience right now in the midst of this.
I mean, I would definitely add open-ended questions so people can answer in their own words.
Yeah.
Because you'll see some really interesting information there. So even just what is your biggest struggle right now?
Yeah, that's the one I was going to recommend. That's always a great one. Yeah. Andrea, anything to add?
Yeah, when I've done surveys, it's really kind of very pointed for what I used surveys for was getting people on a call where then I could maybe see if they were a fit for a particular type of program I was offering. So when I've done surveys, it's been more about like, where are you at right now? What, what's your website? What, if you're looking for more sales or what, kind of something that's pretty pointed for the thing that I might offer them. But I already had that in mind. So if you don't have that in mind, then the open-ended questions can be really good.
Yeah. Sonia?
I'm not really. I mean, I think Pamela, I think you're on the money. What are you struggling with right now? Is a really good question. Make it open-ended. Do not make it multiple choice. And actually, we're talking about survey platforms. You can do that from your email list. You could just send people an email and say, click reply.
Yeah,
that's a good point too.
Nothing new to learn.
Yeah, talk about fast and easy. Yeah,
fast, easy. It makes people feel amazing when you're asking them something and you actually reply.
Yeah,
that's the only thing is don't do it when you don't have time to reply.
Yeah,
so you because you want to be able to reply to each person and say, wow, that's awesome, thank you. And sometimes you can give a quick, hey, you might check this out, and then then you know where people are.
Yep.
Right.
All right, let me look for some more questions back in the chat.
So Monica was asking about payments.
Yeah.
So, that is a challenging thing with payments. I definitely have had that issue when I've extended the payment time. So there's a balance with that. And I think it's really just about being super clear with them. If you miss a payment, you lose access to this.
Yeah.
And being very clear about that from the beginning and realizing that that's going to happen with people.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you get some pushback when you recommend that people offer a guarantee for their products.
Right.
And they, people will say, especially when you are working in the digital space, people will say, oh, but if I offer a guarantee, somebody will come in, consume my whole product, and then ask for a refund.
Yeah.
And yes, that happens. But there's a really good chance that you will make a lot more sales if you offer a guarantee. And it's the same thing with payment plans. There's a really good chance that you will make more sales by offering a payment plan. And if one or two people drop out and they lose access to the product, I mean, you'll likely have enough additional sales that will compensate for any loss you might experience.
Yeah, I've seen that over and over and over again on the sales pages that I write for my clients. When you lean into a guarantee like that, and people get really freaked out about it for online courses and things like that, but it is worth it every single time. They always end up better off in the end.
And the same thing with payment plans, honestly. I mean, you'll just find that more people can buy when you stretch. And I think especially now when you stretch out the payments a little bit. I have somebody in my big league program, Susanna Perkins, and I think Susanna is here right now, actually. And
I saw her,
yeah, she has a site, WP Building Blocks, and she was really debating whether or not to open up this live WordPress coaching, and was not comfortable, I don't think, with the idea of doing payment plans. And went ahead and, kind of worked through the thought process of setting out a payment plan and made way more sales than she ever would have expected because she made it easy for people.
Right.
She even raised her price and still made more sales. So
that's
the thing. Like I just have seen so many inspiring stories in my community that I feel like we're going to be okay.
That's marvelous. We need that right now. Absolutely. All right. There's a question here, and I'm not 100% sure what you're asking, but Pamela, I'm going to throw this out to you because you seem like the best choice for this. What's a good strategy for visual platforms right now? I'm not 100% sure what this person means by that.
Yeah, I would love to get a little more detail, but oftentimes when people ask about visual strategy, what they really want to know is what platform should I use to create my visuals? I am a huge fan of PicMonkey. PicMonkey is online software. It is very powerful and it's very accessible price-wise. It's very, it doesn't cost much and it doesn't really have much of a learning curve. I know people love Canva. And Sonia, like you said, I may get a letter from somebody at Canva after this. But what I love about PicMonkey is it's not, they don't push templates on people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think templates are a good idea, because when it comes to visual branding, you actually really want to be unique. You don't want to use a template that possibly thousands of other people have used. You want to develop something that is unique to you. So PicMonkey is more, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's more like simple tools where you can create something that is custom to your own business. So that's why I like it.
Yeah, I've been a fan of them for years as well. I do a lot of my webinar marketing, the social media icons and stuff like that through them. All right, one quick story, and then I'm going to ask a final question and we'll wrap up. If I didn't get to your question, because there's a lot of you, which is fabulous, that if I didn't get to it, feel free to email me and I will try to do my best, and I'll throw it back out to the panelists and see if there's anything else that they want to add. But Susanna Perkins in the chat actually told a great story. She said, one of my clients is a piano sales and service business in Dallas, Fort Worth. They had to close their doors, but they just did something I thought was great. They sent out a newsletter that told their customers what was going on with their business. And then they talked about how important music is during difficult times, and provided about a half dozen recommended YouTube music videos they thought would be inspirational. I love that.
Yeah.
So what a heartfelt way to do that. And I'm sure their audience very much appreciated that. So, okay. So final question here for the three of you. So what we've got, the world's obviously changing rapidly. It's unprecedented. But do you have any thoughts on which changes are going to become more permanent? Like, for example, I've been reading all these articles about how work from home is obviously working because lots of people are doing it for the first time, and companies are like, wow, this actually works. Many of them, not all, of course. But I'm curious whether, like, which trends do you think are going to become long-term trends over time after this thing is starting to peter off a little bit? What do you think?
It's funny. I think everything has changed and nothing has changed at the same time. I think right now we all need to give our fellow human beings an extra dose of compassion. And that starts with giving ourselves an extra dose of compassion, because we're all dealing with a really hard thing and we're all dealing with it simultaneously. So that's the part of this that feels very different. I think, here in Nashville, the week before the pandemic broke loose in the United States, we had a tornado. It touched down a few miles from where I live. So it was like tornado pandemic kind of within a 1 week period,
Wow.
And you hear about these things that human beings have dealt with in a very localized way. And we've always, and some of us have dealt with things that have happened in our own communities, but it's very rare to have something like this that happens to all of us at once. So my wish is that we find a way to be more compassionate going forward to everyone, because we'll just realize that everyone deals with hard things sometimes.
Yeah, love that. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my hope as well. I do feel like, it's kind of a common enemy that we all have here. There is still kind of that craziness that's going on Facebook about crazy conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. That's still going to remain. I don't think that's ever going to go away. But I do hope that there is more empathy and compassion. I do also think that there's going to be more connection going forward. I'm talking to people that I haven't talked to in years. We're getting together. I've had so many Zoom happy hours that I am just going to need to check into AA.
You're going to have to keep your bottles on your desk, right?
I know. I've just got
an ice bucket.
Just a
You'll have an ice
right
bucket.
Water cooler right here.
I love it. We'll have to bar glasses in our backgrounds now.
Yeah. But I do hope that connection continues. And I feel like there's going to be a more desire for a higher touch connection as we come out of this too, because it's going to be a while. There's going to be a lot of people who are still suffering through it. And I think, as people who've lost their jobs, families that have been impacted in a lot of different ways. And I think that as marketers, we will have to keep that connection and compassion in our messaging for a long time as well. And I think that people will want a little bit higher touch type of service. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. I agree. Sonia, anything to add to finish us up?
I think I am in the universe, I am seeing a lot more people than ever learning about something like Zoom and saying, oh, so I think that the opportunity to teach the things we know and to create the communities virtually, we have been given a real gift with that, a silver lining kind of gift, in that I think that makes more sense to people than it did last month. So there are going to be opportunities. And I also hope, in my my optimist hat, this idea of collective action, collective responsibility, my local restaurant, my local hamburger place, if you go and you literally get the takeout and sit in the parking lot and eat your hamburger, and every meal you get, they deliver to somebody who needs a meal. And I think that I'm hoping that that's going to really catch on more, looking out for each other. And, I have these resources, how can I help somebody else? So I'm hoping we're going to become more, there will be more spirit of service, as you kind of led this off with.
Yeah.
And that those of us who want to approach the world that way, that's going to resonate. So
Absolutely. Wonderful. That's a great place to end, I think. I want to thank you ladies so much. Can you tell me, Pamela, start with you, and just tell me where people can find out more about you?
They can go to bigbrandsystem.com, and they'll keep themselves busy for a long time. That website has been live for now 10 years. So there's lots of good stuff on there.
Yeah. All three of these women, by the way, write some of the greatest content online. So make sure to check out their blog posts, get on their email list. This is really smart, targeted advice that's also very heart-centered. So anyway, that's true for all three of you. So Andrea, how about you?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, all of you. This was really enjoyable, and so many great, all of you who were participating so much in the chat. This has been uplifting for me, and thank you. Yeah. I'm glad that it's been beneficial to everyone too. So you can find me at andreavahl.com, andreavahl.com. I do have that post about how to approach your Facebook ad strategy. It's kind of the recent one. So if you're questioning that, you go check that out.
It's a great one. Yeah. Sonia?
So I have written a lot of things on Copyblogger. I still recommend. I have no financial stake in Copyblogger anymore. So when I tell you it's a good resource, it's just because it is a good resource. But my site is Remarkable Communication. There's a hyphen in there because I'm out of my mind. So remarkable-communication.com. Okay. I have been mocked for this URL more than once. I can take it. And it's not like it's not like don't go there for hot ideas about business strategy, because it's really just where I talk about what's on my mind. I try to be helpful. I'm in kind of a interesting transitional place right now, but I am going to be starting some things up. And you can get, Toril tells me that podcast is live. ResilientBusiness.fm will send you, by the magic of the internet, to where you can find out more about that. Because that's going to be a cool project.
I am definitely going to check that out. Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies. I learned a lot. I know everybody else did too. And it's been wonderful connecting with you like this.
So good.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for bringing this together. Take care.
Stay safe, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Beth.
Thank you.
Stay safe and wash your hands.
Yes. Bye.